Hello everyone. Now, before we get to this video, I want to shout out BlitzApp, whose creators have very generously decided to support my YouTube channel. I know what you're thinking. The league's been out 10 years, you've got your own solution, the websites you go to. Blitz is different, and let me show you why. I recently cast a game where Tarzan popped off on Lee Sin. So, clicking on Lee Sin in the client, you'll notice that BlitzApp loads up Tarzan's rune page. Already, you're like, okay, this is nice, tell me more. BlitzApp is the only app that can auto-import Tarzan's rune set straight into the client. Loading into the client, you'll notice, opening up the shop, you got Blitz's suggested jungle item set, but there's more than that. These are recent pro builds loaded of very notable players. You can jump in and play Lee Sin like Tarzan does, and I hope this quick run through shows you that BlitzApp's doing a little bit differently, and it's seamless and awesomely integrated. You can download the Blitz app at blitz.gg. Links are in the description below. Okay, welcome to my second VOD review of the night, Griffin versus Gen.G. Had a bit of a false start. This one will be better. Pick ban cut out of the overlay here, so we'll jump to the Gamepedia page to try to pick it up. Where we at? Weeks 4 to 6. We're looking for Gen.G versus Griffin. Game number 1. So, let's look over the information here. Bans from the Griffin side. Now, this is Griffin playing after Rift Rivals, where they came away with the series victory for the LCK, but obviously a little bit shaky individually in the final game. Blue side bans Nico, Tahm-Kench, Skarner. Been a lot of Skarner priority from Gen.G, which I'm not a huge fan of. Like, they're one of the teams that likes to just play it because they like peanut on a jungler that can punish with suppression rather than only into certain matchups. And for me, Skarner is always a sometimes food. So they just get a blind ban on that. The Tahm-Kench is a flex pick for Gen.G. QV likes to play it in the top lane. And the Nico ban is becoming more and more of a staple. We see a lot of Nico and Karthus bans pretty commonly. Because Gen.G had a bit of a struggling game on Karthus, they're one of the few teams that doesn't draw a Karthus ban. And that's why it comes out in this game. And then first pick Karma. So it was a bit of a surprise to see Karma fall through bans. Obviously, it's been super, super contested. The only team that, until recently, had played it was Damwon Gaming. They played it and lost on it as it doesn't fit Nuguri's champion pool and disengaged from there. Gen.G bans. Jace ban just has been Sword's most played by far in Summer. That's his spring stats. Summer stats. 10 games of Jace already, 90% win rate. So I think that's pretty smart. One of the first teams to start banning away the Jace against Sword, kind of like his Urgot Scion bans in spring season. The Yuumi ban, well, Lehens is the best Yuumi in the world in my opinion, so easy ban there to put out. And then the Aatrox ban. So of Sword's games, he's had 18 of his... Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's played 23 games, 18 of them on Jace and Aatrox. And the Jace Aatrox bans pushes him off comfort pretty hard, right? So that's pretty smart agenda from Gen.G. I've actually always been a fan of throwing off people who've been serially picking a very small effective champion pool rather than banning the best picks away from players who can play a lot of champs. So when it comes to Tarzan, when it comes to Chovy, both these guys, whatever their level of form, have very wide champion pools they can play, especially as Chovy has gone on. There's a lot of respect, you know, if not the Akali, then the Aurelia and stuff like that. That I actually am a big fan of banning away players who are only showing 1 or 2 picks and who are kind of getting the champions they always play because the priority is always there to ban out someone else. So if I'm facing Griffin, I'm much more banning out Lehens or Sword rather than trying to ban out especially Chovy and Tarzan, but even Viper can always find a pick to play. So I actually enjoy the ban attempts that come out. It's a first pick Karma, no surprise. It's been almost only top lane and support in the LCK. I believe 1 mid lane game, maybe 2. Karma first pick. And we said on cast, okay, this could definitely just be a plug and play replacement for the Jace, because Jace and Karma have a pretty similar laning style in terms of overextending. Gen.G respond with Lux Sejuani in the first round. Lux with Yuumi gone is just pretty much the triumphant support pick. Yuumi, Tahm Kench gone. Lux is the only S tier support next to Nautilus available in this draft. And the Sejuani is taken, and I'm not always a fan of blind Sejuani. People have been asking me in chat about my thoughts on Sejuani. In the LCK, if there's a Sejuani first round, there will be a second champion in the first round that vindicates why a Sejuani, because she's not just pick and make it work. Silas jungle exists against it. You can farm as Karthus against it. And we see the Karthus taken, and then the Aurelia is actually taken away from Sejuani because Aurelia and Sejuani have that amazing kill synergy. But Camille is still up, and while another region might have kind of taken AD carry here and banned away some ADCs or taken a different approach, we see the Camille first round here, which means that Sejuani will always have a lane to focus. It could be Camille mid, it could be Camille top. With Gen.G, it honestly could be either player, because Fly isn't in this game, and he plays some of the more eclectic mid lane champions. Showmaker has played multiple games of mid lane Camille. And Cuvée historically has been a very celebrated Camille player. Camille and Gnar have been the highs for Cuvée as a player, and a lot of other champions have either fit him or really not fit him. So he's another a Maokai player, a Poppy player in the past. Bans come through, Akali ban, because, you know, it's a potential relieving pressure pick from something like a Lux support, and then a Renekton ban, because the Renekton ban's a bit more intriguing here. I guess they're wondering whether there's a possibility that there will be a top lane Renekton pick here alongside the Aurelia. The Pantheon ban was the ban against Fly. Fly had been spamming mid lane Pantheon in solo queue, and it has a good matchup into Aurelia, as we know. So we were actually talking about whether they would go for this ban. We were kind of surprised Griffin didn't first round ban it. They second round ban it, which obviously feels terrible to have to ban Pantheon. And the Sivir ban, just to remove Sivir Lux, not even considering the possibility that Lux could be mid lane. I know a lot of people are now watching this game after it's happened, and they know there's a Lux mid lane. Why have I not talked about that? In Korea, until this game, there had been no Lux mid lane, even if a champion like Zoe was picked, which we saw Lux picked into by Bjergsen during the LCS playoffs. Because we just never saw it, at some point, it's facetious to talk about it. So from the lens of how this draft is working, it just hasn't been relevant. So Kalista taken. It's a more recent ruler champion. He's been dropping it for a while. Kai'Sa Nort is like strongest available and can potentially all in almost any Lux lane. So it's a lane that does its thing and theoretically can work against however bad of a lane bully lane. You can definitely take Caitlyn here and try to... Sorry, we already have Kalista, so they know it's... They assume it's Kalista Lux. Against Kalista Lux, you can all in one person and potentially burst them down. I was thinking the AD carry hadn't been selected. But then we see this decision. The Volibear comes in. The Thunder Bear comes in. First game of Volibear in many, many years. And it changes and flips the script quite a lot. Instead, now we just have tank support versus tank support, AD carry versus AD carry, but the Volibear has some very interesting interactions and gives them another engager to go along the realm of the Sejuani Camille. And they also just have hard crowd control, some of which is melee, some of which is super ranged, targeted, and also skill shot. It gives them incredible pick power. And the moment you see Karma, Karthus, Aurelia, Kai'Sa, there's 4 champions here who are very prone to being picked. So throwing in an extra pick comp champ and stopping it from being disengaged Fate's Call only makes this a really solid creative draft coming through from the side of Gen.G. Like, Gen.G had pulled off a couple of interesting drafts in recent memory. I think back to their Olaf Karma draft with Karma mid lane, Olaf jungle, that was super popular in the LPL, but they very clearly didn't know how to play it out. That was a super high tempo draft. You needed to play quick, otherwise you just straight up lose. So So that was a bad look from the side of Gen.G. When this game started, you sit back, you marvel at it, you're like, okay, that's a pretty sexy draft. But because it's Gen.G who've been oscillating from really good to really poor and had been mostly unable to reinvent their style for a long time, I think there was definitely no guarantee this would be a fitting draft for them. People who listen to my stream know I'm a big fan of pro wrestling, so I'm a big fan of the Luchador Volibear skin. But it's pretty golden, so yeah, 3-star Volibear is a pretty good line for that one. Definitely when it comes to priority, Gen.G gave up a bit to make that happen. You kind of need the Sejuani attention topside in order to find real value, because if you play Camille versus Jace, so Camille players out there will know that Camille versus Jace, if you have some good wards down, you just take hookshot trades and make burst trades with something like the Grasp of the Undying. Against Karma, those burst trades don't happen because shield, tether, and then Q. Like, it's so much of trade up possibility for the side of Sword that this is a pretty dominant winning matchup, unless there's a lot of Sejuani jungle attention and potentially getting a summon a spell out of the Karma early. Lux in the mid lane, my impression is that you can be all in at level 6, kind of like how Aurelia would always all in Zoe mid when we had that matchup pretty commonly. So there's potential post 6 for mid lane to be able to struggle, but pre 6 is probably going to be on the okay side of things. The bot lane is actually a pretty unexplored one because there's a lot of all in early from life. And if you notice the summon a spell, it's pretty important here. With exhaust taken over ignite, the no ignite from Lehends actually means that ruler and life will get a lot more lane control than you might imagine, because there's no ignite to stop the Volibear passive from being super powerful in the early levels. Definitely, with no ignite, Volibear's ability to go for a hard all-in is actually a lot higher than if there was ignite, because his health bar is so pitiful from the support role that ignite will just kind of deal with healing, and healing doesn't work as much as a strategy. But with no ignite, this Volibear actually might be the reason that Viper and Lehends have given up some minion waves. Let's see if there was any difference in terms of when we got to lane at the start. If you go on Volibear support, you want to get full access to the minions. It means level 2 advantage as well. So Gen.G, walk into lane, start autoing. They want their level 2 advantage. And I think with the ignite, they're very unlikely to get any sort of a response from the enemy. So I like that Gen.G had a plan. They've gone the ignite Volibear. It'll give them a lot of options. The shallow warding was something that, when we talked about Karthus jungle in the LCK, too often this is the story against Karthus jungle. It's 1 minute 20 in, you pause the game, and there's no information spotting any of the camps. We did not see Volibear, Kalista, and Lux invade on the bot side. We didn't see a top side invade. And Karthus in general in Korea has been getting out of hand because there's been almost no counter jungling. And this was true by the LPL teams at Rift Rivals, but also true in the LCK, is that teams are giving Karthus a kind of free leash to kill all of his camps super fast. And single target Skittles means that Karthus has a really fast farming phase. So at the end of the day, I'm surprised to see Karthus get so much liberty, but I am happy to see that Wenfly does get a shove in on Aurelia, which is inevitable before Tiamat, before any sort of lane control. I do like the deep vision, because at least Lux now knows which side of the jungle Karthus is likely to be on. Kleptos top versus Fleet Footwork, which is different. So I think if this is Jace, you always go Resolve Tree, and you go into the Grasp of the Undying, but you don't win aggressive Grasp of the Undying trades against a shield user like the Karma. So I actually appreciate Cuvée going a different rune choice here. I think it's one of those things where the best players always have a different rune available. And even though you almost never see Fleet Footwork Camille, I don't hate it in this scenario. I don't think any other rune would have gotten any more value. 5v5s as the game goes on is pretty hard to evaluate. The big position of power is in Chovy getting leads in the mid lane and then turret diving top side. Because Karma Irelia with a Requiem is a crazy amount of power. And what you would often want to do, like in this game, the ideal way to play post 6 on Karthus and Irelia is that you build up a wave slowly in top lane as Irelia is pushing out mid lane. Irelia rotates top side for a gank. Karthus, in the meanwhile, the moment this is talked about, clears top side to bot side. And then the moment that Irelia is in position for a turret dive with, say, the Vanguard's Edge and also a Karma Mantra Shield, Karthus has cleared all his minions and is bot side for a counter gank defense or just to press the Requiem button. You don't need Karthus to actually be present for the turret dive. Karma plus Camille plus Requiem is enough. And Karthus can just naturally path like this and always be there for a counter gank if they try to make a map play on the other side. That's the way you want to play out this sort of a game macro-wise. Now, there's always going to be a lot of variables. Flashes go down. Vision is incomplete. But my impression is that you want river control top side from the side of Griffin for Irelia to roam, and then just park Karthus bottom side in order to be defensive. Let's watch this play from the start. So Sejuani has backed already. 4 minutes. Rift Scuttle would have been taken a while ago. And we get to see why Gen.G took this Volibear. And I'll show you why. So watch Life throughout this entire play. You know, Life is in a ward. He would have known he's in a ward. He was in the brush when it happened. He autos it. They clear the ward. Watch how Life plays the lane. You're Volibear. Now, take this into your solo queue games at home. You have no lane presence when you're hanging back. So you have to be threatening. So obviously you're always clicking forward, clicking back. You're always threatening that you're going to look for a Rolling Thunder, which is the Q and a flip. And if you do that, if you're always laning with an aggressive mindset, watch this play. So we'll start here so we can talk about it. You always want to show presence. The way you get presence is to threaten, right? You threaten that you're going to do something and hard all in. So as you look over the play, we know that Peanut's here. Viper doesn't. There has been no vision of that. Watch how many frames there are to respond to Flash Q from Life. Like Viper's walking up. He's focusing on the CS. Life is walking up because there's... Basically, Life will always walk up when there's a last hit, and he knows that Viper will walk up into auto attack range. So Viper autos that minion and then starts to walk back. And then this is the amount of time that's there, right? You saw that just then. Watch how many frames there are from how Life approaches this. The minion goes down. We're at ultra slow speed here on purpose. Viper is going to miss that next minion. Not going to be able to last hit it. Now, watch the Volibear, right? He autos the minion, turns around, as we know. So he's not facing. So you assume that he's allowing the grouped up minion wave to come in. And then in 0.1 speed, watch how much time Viper had to react. It's literally almost 0 seconds of time to react. He misses the ignite, amusingly, on the all-in. But when you have that little window to react, assuming the player is laning properly with the right amount of lane presence and not just walking up when the jungler's there only, there actually is almost no window because there's no animation time to Q. There's no wind up. So if you hide the Q during a flash animation and go in at the perfect time, actually there's no realistic way that Viper could have gotten out in that scenario. He misses the ignite. It ignites onto the Nautilus, but those sort of plays is really, really hard to measure around. And that's the kind of cool thing about them. So we get to watch it in 1 time speed. And there's just nothing you can do. Yeah, people ask, did he get the flip onto who? It was onto the KeSPA. They got the kill on KeSPA. Like, it's really well engineered. And then on the other side of the map, as is always the case on the reversing play, Cuvée already had a ward down. He spots them coming in. He's able to disengage. So cool to see that from Gen.G. Like, because they're definitely one of the teams you would consider would be the most guilty of playing out an aggressive bot lane pick and just farming out with it. It doesn't happen there. And they even get this scenario in mid lane. Good pathing from Peanut. Because if you watch Peanut, he's pathing through river. He has no camps to go to. He wants to go to mid lane. And he would have had a communication with Fly and said, hey, like, let me teleport into the mid lane to open up a play. And they get Chovy's flash after getting first blood bot side. And already, that's the most explosive first 5 minutes that Gen.G have had all season. They have taken down 3 summoners from the enemy and have a kill and cost nothing in order to make that play happen. So it's really well played from Gen.G's bot lane and mid lane synergizing with Peanut. The biggest problem I've seen with Gen.G was that I thought that Peanut coming in would be the bridge for them from the early game to late game, but instead they've just never been able to actually build synergy between Peanut and his laners. Just these 2 plays at the start, and I was like, okay, we're in for a different Gen.G performance today. Because now they've just kind of rewritten what this map is supposed to be about. The Callista Volley is going to get pretty significant control over the minion wave for the next bit. It's up about maybe half a minion wave on the bot side. Lux doesn't have to deal with a flash all-in from the Aurelia at level 6. You know, we're talking about how this lane can go like Zoe versus Aurelia used to. And topside is still going good for Sword. But the question I posed during pick and ban on the cast was, is the Jace priority from Sword just babying the fact that he can take Jace? There's no champion with a real combat advantage over Jace. He can farm out, get some turret plates, and maybe there are no second or third round strategies for Sword, just like there weren't second and third round strategies for Sword in spring season when he had Urgot, Sion, and when those champions were gone, so were a lot of Griffin's fortunes. The karma is significantly different to the Jason one way in that her turret taking threat is a lot lower. You don't just build Dirks aplenty and have an attack speed sword on your W like the Jace does. You actually would have to go into a Sheen build in order to have any sort of turret threat. And we see the Sheen into Iceborne Gauntlet Chakarez build a lot less in Korea, mainly because it doesn't really have a window outside of dunking with trades and getting a bit more damage at hitting turrets. The reason why I bring that up in this particular case is that at the end of the day, he's going to play Karma like it's Jace. He's going to go the build that has the most trading and turret plate shredding ability. But that means you don't either have a high AP build or an early utility build. So it doesn't make you better at grouping with your team and putting out big AoE shields like a Redemption and Athene's build that we often see has. It doesn't give you a one-item power spike like the Lost Chapter items we see. We see from time to time everything from Archangels to Ludens, maybe even GOP on the Karma. So this build really only is about trade health, like healthy trades and sieging. And it does mean that we're putting it back to the kind of Jace playstyle again. And then once again raises my query on, okay, is this a Sword effective champion pool thing? Is I want to see him on champions that aren't Jace and also the Aatrox. And we started to see that in week 5 of the LCK. This is a really cool stat. 2,278 days April 17th, 2013. What were you guys up in April 17th, 2013? Well, Bielzahan was playing jungle for SK Telecom T1 Terminator in 2013 April on Jungle Volibear. I managed to nail this on the cast. It was obviously a really long time ago. It was Reaper top lane, Bielzahan, better known to EU fans as Horror in the jungle, known for his Hecarim jungle, if you guys remember. It used to be Mightily in the mid lane, but Suno, who went on to play with Loco Doco on Quantic, was in the mid lane, and then it was Raven and Starlast. One of my favorite bot lanes from Korea back in the early days of Raven and Starlast. They loved to play Twitch Nami, which is one of my favorite lanes. So big time shout out. Really old bot lanes to be talking about. Finishing my master's in chemistry. Well, you had a good 2013 then. Nicely done. Volley in every solo queue game. Stop talk about it. I mean, Volibear has been seen in Korean support games for a while now. Kellen played a lot of it in the early parts of the season, which caught me off guard. I must admit, I don't browse Kellen's solo queue too much because, you know, Jin-Air. But it was why it was banned against Jin-Air earlier in the week. And then Life kind of ripped him off and picked it up in this game. And you start to see why it can be really, really powerful. In pro play, Volley support has never really been a pick. It's been something that you saw from time to time in solo queue, like one of the more flexible off-meta picks to take. Consider what's been achieved by Peanut this game in the early game. Assist bot lane, took the enemy mid laner's flash, and then took the enemy top laner's flash just from his pathing. So the amount of Sejuani value here, like, you definitely take 5 camps less for basically influencing every single lane positively compared to what happened before. Like, yes, it's never ideal that Karthus has got a free farm on, but I think the trade-off here is definitely pretty ideal from the side of Gen.G. And they actually have a comp that can immune or heal Requiem damage pretty reliably. You're going to have AP Lux shields. There's the Fate's Call and potentially the Hextech Ultimatum to immune Requiem damage. There's a lot of counterplay actually in this game to the Karthus, and obviously he's not getting any Dark Seal stacks with the way he's playing. Common Ward, we don't see this enough in other regions, but if your jungler is going to play on one side of the map, let's say Sejuani says, okay, I'm going to play bot side. What Sej can do, or your jungler can do, is put a control ward behind the Rift Herald pit around 10 minutes, and then you have full information on if the Rift Herald was started. Too many times we see LEC and LCS games where a play is made by the enemy jungler bot side, and they think that Rift Herald's been started, but they have no information on how healthy the jungler is, how healthy the Rift Herald is, has it even been started at all? Maybe they're looking for a turret dive. This ward here either shows Karthus because they can see the Rift Herald leashed, or it gives extra information for Cuvee to get the hell out of top lane when his jungler is playing bot side around a Drake or around the bot lane gank. And the reverse ward around where Nautilus is can also be placed at the bot side of the Drake. So this plays to the stuff LS always talks about, you know, the red side is better at defending Baron because you have access to this terrain. Well, red side is better at putting the defensive control ward behind the Baron. And Griffin on the blue side are better at putting the defensive control ward either exactly over the wall, or you can try to hide it around this point, which is not scouted if you just walk down the river. So those are the two control ward spots you have. So we farm it out for a bit longer. There was no Rift Herald taken. It was leashed, but backed away from. So it flashes down, and yes, he's getting some like cool little pokies on, but nothing to get a huge lead. A single turret plate at 11 minutes. Like, you would at least assume 2 turret plates in this matchup, but so far only 1 has been taken. Lane swap from both bot lanes. How does the bot lane swap happen? So very often whenever the enemy bot lane backs first, you always back and start pathing towards mid lane with the potential to either be counter ganking at the Rift Herald or just ganking to mid lane and going back bot lane. Those are the two options you have, because you never want to allow the enemy bot lane to guarantee a pre 14-minute Rift Herald. You can't really punish enough on the bottom side, especially as it gets closer and closer to 14. So first back from Ruler, he runs to bot. Griffin have first control of the Rift Herald, so they leash it. Does mean Kliss is going to be late. That's enough to get the reset. If they reset and you have control over this part of River, it does mean that Ruler and Life will get to bot lane faster if everyone disengages off it. So that's why you see Griffin releashing it, because they want to drag the bot lane up again. The bot lane, as you can see, tried to walk bot lane with the advantage they have and now being called against. This is a big standstill in the game. Griffin get first advantage because they're able to push in an entire minion wave that will be denied to turret. Good burst down. Okay, let's watch this replay. So Gen.G is the first time Gen.G has had control over the Rift Herald. You'll see there's about 10 Ren stacks into the Rift Herald. They previously weren't able to leash it to their own ends because they want to leash it around here so they can always kite towards mid lane and bot lane first. This is the first time they've actually put it into burst range. And they burst it almost exactly from 1500 as Lux hits a life binding. This whole play is actually really well coordinated. So consider how this starts. Gen.G can see this area. They can also see this area. What can Griffin see? Like, Griffin can see the people in front of their faces. They can't see Cuvée. He's coming in on a control ward. Life is sweeping this brush. The amount of vision advantage plus having control over the Rift Scuttle here is actually insane, because these guys are all playing on borrowed time. They're trying to hope to find someone. Only real engage they have is the anchor from Lehends. These guys are both controlling the health bar of the objective that you're currently on, but also threatening out of vision. So there's a lot to like about the start of this. They get a little bit of spotting with the Wall of Pain, but that's obviously temporary, and it doesn't see the Volibear. And Fly sneaks in a binding, and they get a really good engage here to Gen.G. Really smart, too. Like, Gen.G have a plan. They understand how to play it. They time their burst well. And they play around vision. Jam the Rift Herald. Definitely take notes on this one, Arcadian. A lot safer over there than over here. That's a nice play. And look, it's not a explosive play. It doesn't get them a lot. But with where the game was, 2 leashes being releashed by Griffin, forcing Gen.G to happy foot between Rift Herald and bot lane twice. The fact that they got the kill, got the Rift Herald, got the charge, and then returned to the area where they already had advantage was pretty damn big for the side of Griffin. It feels so bad for Chovy, because by the time he's in, he can't just walk in and try to like ult onto 4 people when there's no frontline left from the side of Griffin. So because there was a vision disadvantage, like we mentioned, Chovy had to take the safest possible path and thus ult up, flash up, but no inroads at all coming through from the side of Chovy. It's pretty pitiful. Only 2 turret plates in the top lane against Camille. Camille's ahead in CS. Definitely not a game where... So if you're going to go CS for CS against top lane Camille, top lane Karma, you're basically winning. So does call into question Sword's ability to really dominate lanes that you have to dominate. So we play it out here. Like, Chovy's been pretty well curtailed in the mid lane. There's no stopwatch on Lux. If she had stopwatch, actually, she'd have no kind of all-in kill threat, the Aurelia, onto the Lux. In this case, it's possible to try an aggressive play. But the shielding during lane, Chovy feels better of it. And now it's just back on what Gen.G want to do. And the texture of this game, if you guys are following, is Peanut went bot, good things happened. Peanut went mid, good things happened. Peanut went top, good things happened. And Tarzan farmed and then tried the Rift Herald twice, which eventually Gen.G were able to overtake. My hypothesis around Tarzan, like, he's definitely one of the best junglers in the world. But I think in games like this, where he's playing a champion with very low gank threat, even less than like Evelynn, for example, that's another one of his favorites, it's very hard for Karthus to decide what's happening in the side lanes, and we never saw the play we requested. Where is the Chovy pushes in mid lane, turret dives, groups with Karma topside, and turret dives Camille? That play never happened. So there never was the play where Karthus could be bot side, and they just meant for a 2 or 3-man dive topside. Instead, they farmed it out, and because Tarzan doesn't seem to be there to actually order lanes around with crowd control and engage, the fact that they keep returning to this Karthus pick has been a really curious one for me. It really feels like the Karthus has a lot of negative synergy with how Griffin's early game is led. If you think back to spring season, it was Tarzan and Chovy had 2v2 advantage and either went top or bot, but it always was ended by Chovy, but it was also related to Tarzan's strength. He would draft Xinjia. He would draft combat advantages from the jungle. Karthus is the exact opposite of the sort of playstyle Griffin were winning with, and it should be noted that Griffin have seemed to want to change their style in summer and made their team less Chovy focused. But I think the end result is that Griffin have been a bit unfocused. Like, I don't see where they're getting their leads around this game apart from some CS in mid lane, and that CS hasn't transferred into anything on a comp that may not be on a hard timeline, but does work best from in front, utilizing how obnoxious the turret dives are around the Karma. So that's kind of my read on Griffin's inaction in already 18 minutes of gameplay, right? It's already 18 minutes in. Wherever Sejuani goes, they put down control ward. They have a lot of face checkers. Sejuani, Camille, Volibear, they can all face check. They clear out vision. And then Griffin are in these awkward spots where from behind they're trying to work out if Aurelia can get in there or if Karthus can contest and other issues like that. And like, that's what will happen. The moment this passage of vision happens, it's so scary for Griffin to contest. Lehens comes in slowly, doesn't want to face check everything. They have to use their blue trinket early. Karthus can't face check this brush, let alone this brush, and get close to the pit and blown up. It's the very clear difference between the teams and how they drafted was the availability of making plays like that happen. And the TP bot side even does get Chovy away. So the play is over. The Drake is already dead, and it's the second time there's been a bit of an overextension from the side of Griffin. Yeah. So we can watch the replay on this one. So it's a really intelligent teleport from Cuve because instantly Chovy can't try to flank fly. So Chovy's involvement with all of his gold at the start is minimal. Like, he can't actually get into this fight. He has to go the longest way around. So already, really like the TP coming through from Chovy. And if you watch how things stand, Life is on one side patrolling a side flank, and Cuve's on the bot side. So already you like how it started. But then as the play goes on, just like around the Rift Herald, Gen.G have control over how many spears are in. They can go for a burst combo. They burst it down from 1,000 and they take it. But here's the problem. the front line from Griffin has overstayed. This ends up being a little bit more important in the future, but Tarzan tries to get in for a smite steal, and we watch Fly. When does he actually shoot out the light bind? So he shoots it through the Drake, and it goes all the way onto Viper. I actually am surprised that the range was that far, but it's another case where Drake is down, they didn't pick it up, and Gen.G drafted all of this pick. Flash Q, we already talked about, no cast animation. Peanut, 4 people to hit. He'll eventually find somebody, and QV can come from the flank. Like, it's a pretty delightful approach here. QV didn't fully commit, which I didn't notice on first time through, and was able to buy a little bit of time on the top side here. But it's more about the scene of the crime being one that Griffin should have just backed away from earlier. But the call was walk up, try to smite it away. And that already is so different to the Griffin I'm used to. Like, the Griffin this week, it's not just the team had a bad week. They looked off color. They looked un-Griffin-like in terms of how they usually play the games. Scattered at the best. They lose mid lane turret here. And now you look at the game state 20 minutes in, and they're 2,000 gold behind a team with a strong front line that they're going to really struggle to face check on. And just like we would with a Jace comp, Karma comp is similar in that from behind, you better be grouping with the Karma to make things happen. Otherwise, she's just going to be trading farm against Fly in the top lane, or trading farm against a Camille. And that's not acceptable for how Karma is going to play out. And it's a Karma build that really only is defensive, all things considered. Yeah, Chovy might have 215 CS, but like, what can he really do with it? Without disarm, Aurelia versus Camille is a very interesting 1v1 in the side lane. I think without disarm, I probably give the advantage to Camille, but I'm no expert on that particular matchup. The Fiora matchups are a bit more straightforward. I don't know if we have any Aurelia or Camille mains in chat, but as things stand, probably Camille in the 1v1 in the late game. Not always going to be the matchup because we have the Karma as well. Really slow vision play here. So what happens when this sort of plays that you're watching here, we'll watch it at a faster speed. These are the very standard vision plays that happen when your frontline teamfight comp gets ahead. Peanut pokes in his head, knows he can't die, wants to clear out vision, and it's just about how far back can we push Sword Tarzan from wave clearing. Let's get this turret eventually, purely from threat. Put down a control ward, you contest it, QV comes from the side. And what can you catch in kind of the craziness is why plays like this happen. It's a good defense by Griffin because it's a bit predictable by Gen.G. For once, they're playing around terrain Griffin owns rather than terrain Gen.G owns. Terrain's a hard word to say for some reason. And because Griffin stick around, they are able to actually bulldoze down the top lane turret, which is important for them. It's their first turret of the game. Camille pushes out from base. Like, Camille's ahead 600 gold. So basically the kills have gotten Camille ahead of even Klepto Karma. And we've never seen Karma roam and make proactive plays. So sadly, the Karma's been caught happy footing a lot of the sides. Aurelia auto wins scaling between Aurelia and Camille this game because of Conqueror versus Fleet. That's a good point. The Conqueror probably does give the edge in what I think is otherwise kind of like a 52-48 matchup for the Camille. Good shout out. Thank you very much to Nyamster. I don't know if that's 100% enough to like make it super one-sided, but definitely Conqueror in the late game over Fleet is pretty heavily powerful there. Another vision game. QV can just back off, and with Ravenous Hydra, pick up the Ocean Drake. Like the items that QV has here, how I approach Karma top is I talked about how I like to see it roam, right? And I prefer kind of the cheap, let's just go roam out, turret dives around it, etc. Didn't get that. We got the dominate lane build and also the no button of the Zonias. And that can be fine. But if you go a build like Iceborne Gauntlet Karma and the enemy top laner who's a split pusher gets their items on time, then you done goofed. And that's kind of my issue I see here is that if you, as a Camille, were able to get Triforce and entire Ravenous Hydra boots to at 25 minutes, the window where Karma can even walk up is starting to go down. Like, yes, you probably can't kill her, but the amount of staying power Camille has in this lane shouldn't be that way. Like, you should at least be an anti-carry as the Karma and stop the enemy laner from getting their items on time. So the fact that Camille's this big makes the game really hard for Griffin to play, because Camille can push up, Camille can team fight. Camille's got a lot of options. Meanwhile, Karma's starting to run out of options. Single TP to mid lane while QV split pushes. Fine trade. Fly was just getting back to the wave. And now teamfight-wise, Gen.G just straight up have the advantage. With their gold advantage of 3,400 gold, it's Stinger versus entire Blade, double lifesteal items onto the Callista. It's 2-item Lux with Stopwatch and Safety versus 1.5 item Aurelia. It's super tank Peanut, and we already talked about how top lane's really powerful. Like, they've thrown in a Athene's on top side, but 5v5 wise, where Griffin would have had some windows potentially to overcome, unless they fight perfectly, I feel like maybe already Gen.G have a lot of tools to win the 5v5. And that's the more surprising thing, is that Gen.G have gotten this many leads, partly because of the Volibear all-ins, and that's surprising Griffin in the 2v2. But I think also because they've just been smarter at how to use their jungler, which, again, haven't been able to say that about Gen.G at all in 2019. They've had a lot of struggles around how to integrate jungle. QV keeps split pushing. He's got a Sterix entirely built. Oh boy. I thought the 25-minute 2-item was looking good. Third item is very impressive. So this is probably the most interesting part of the game as it closes up from here, is Griffin realized that they have to find a way to get QV's teleport, because they don't want to lane Karma against Camille. They don't want to try to counter teleport. So how low can you get the Baron to bait out the TP? Let's wait, because I feel like a lot of Camille's, you watch this play, right? And they don't have deep vision. If you notice how it starts, they've swept out a lot of the areas. So I feel like a lot of Camille's teleport early here. They teleport around 10,000 health. Griffin moves away, and the play is over. Watch the health bar when the TP starts. I'll pause the game. The TP only starts after the Baron falls below 5,000. I feel like that is critical in why this play happens. Let's play the play from here. The problem is that with Baron leashed below 5,000, Griffin can't turn and leave. So the entire fight here happens, which is actually a super big fight. Let's go over the fight one more time. So this fight is pivotal because it's over the Baron. Griffin started only to get a teleport and to get out. If your first goal is to kite away from the Baron, never kite away from the Baron below 5,000 health, because the moment that you move this way and that way as Griffin saying, okay, yep, we got what we wanted, we got the TP, the enemy just releases the Baron, kills it, and then you lost Baron. You gave it away for free. That's why the mind game here, when do you teleport? was so important from the side of Camille, because the moment the teleport was started, the Baron is below 5,000, and now Griffin have kind of played with their food too much and then spit out a bit of it, because they can't just disengage. They will lose the Baron. Tarzan's caught awkwardly tanking up the Baron before he wants to flash out. If you wait that extra bit, Griffin are damned if they do. Either it's a 50-50 smite or they're giving up a free Baron. That's the really smart thing that happened here. And that's what I was so impressed with Gen.G, is they didn't go early. Do not blow your load early on the teleport here. That patience was really, really impressive. And it's a symptom of and a sign of good Gen.G. Gen.G this game, smart around how they use their jungler, patient around their plays, patient on that teleport. That's Gen.G. Gen.G were the patient team. They were the shield team. They were the wait for your moment team. But when your jungler's not getting any ganks off, when your laners aren't having a lot of synergy with each other, it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. You can't find a time that doesn't exist. But Gen.G got 3 successful ganks off in all 3 lanes and then picked their moments to fight. And that was a really smart moment to choose a fight, because it just zoned away. Like, Chovy's done 3,700 damage as free farmed Aurelia this game, never got an all-in the mid lane, and now they lost Baron, which is huge for Gen.G. There were a lot of windows here for Griffin to attack, and they just didn't. Like, Griffin just farmed out this game, which was really distressing to watch. Like, the team had been in such great form before Rift Rivals, but they lose a notable game, and, like, unfortunately this result has happened. Like, Griffin have definitely looked a step behind in this week of LCK. Playing multiple lanes with Peanut being able to cut first between them. Fly and Ruler step back. Actually, sorry, it's Ruler and Fly step back in order to bring up the minion wave faster. They're very specific about when the minion waves crash with turrets. Otherwise, you can defend one and then defend the other. So you want to run back and try to group them to crash at the same time in order to create this much lane pressure. We saw some really bad Baron management in some of our previous replays. Gen.G were always good at this part of the game. It's just they could never get there. Camille's doing some bonkers damage in the back. Oh, watch this play from Cuvée. Watch Cuvée in this play, right? Stun target. Cuvée gets the stun in, so it means the knockup doesn't matter. Goes into stasis. He's full health, so he's not under threat, but immunes through the W for a kill, and then hits the hookshot stun to kill the KeSPA. That's some clean Cuvée Camille. And this is a clean victory. Gen.G played this one out really, really well. Really solid, really clean. Almost no windows for Griffin to get back into the game. And just in a way that we couldn't have seen coming. Like, this is Gen.G using break time well. I feel like we had 9 LCK teams that either got worse, maybe 8. I think we have 8 LCK teams that got worse or did not change in power level, either playing at Rift Rivals or going on break. SK Telecom T1, noticeably better after Rift Rivals. We'll say 7. Kingzone Dragon X, largely better after Rift Rivals. But Gen.G, the only team that didn't go to Rift Rivals and look way better. Like, they used their prep time super well in this particular series. They came in with a cool strategy, and that strategy got them the first blood in bot lane because they weren't ready for the Flash Q Volibear play. But also, they were able to tighten up the one thing that has been completely gone from Gen.G all summer and all year, which is synergy between jungle and lanes. I don't know if that's Fly coming back in with a new lease of life, but Gen.G really actually showed the sort of robust performance that was classic Gen.G, 2018 Gen.G, 2017 and 16 especially. And it made it, while it wasn't explosive, really a treat to watch. So shout out to Gen.G. Loved the Volibear. I think we'll definitely see teams with Kalista especially try and throw that one out there and make things happen. But what it means for the rest of the season for these teams, like today I can't tell you. Where it feels like Griffin going down, Gen.G going up, but it is so close in the top 7 of the LCK. You know, only Hummerlife, Jinair, and KT seem to be kind of out of contention for playoffs. This Gen.G can go far because right now we have no outright first seed in Korea. So Worlds buff Gen.G was a meme that I thought was ironic mostly. I didn't even think they would make the gauntlet. But now, looking like the gauntlet's coming. And Gauntlet Gen.G is quite the predicament. So let's call it there for our LCK VOD review of the week. That means we only have one VOD review remaining. Going to take a quick break, answer some questions, and then we're going to end the stream with LEC action. It's a long epic between Fnatic and Splice, and our first Kiana review coming after the break. See you guys soon.